Hey everybody, Ali Duzette here, and we are just about 6 weeks away from a massive conjunction. We are having Saturn and Neptune conjoining at the Aries point for the first time in history, period, as far as I think anyone has ever recorded. I mean, like millions of years in the past, we have not seen this kind of conjunction before. If you think about it, Saturn is running on a 29-year cycle. And Neptune is running on a 184-year cycle. And so, they line up every 29 years when Saturn, hits up Neptune again, and Neptune's like still moving. But having them both conjoin at 00 degrees of Aries, the first degree of the zodiac. That is something special. And when we see that, we can know that this is the beginning of something new for the entire planet. Now, the story begins all the way back in 2020, actually, where we had a major conjunction. And let me see if I can pull it up. I didn't get it loaded up ahead of time. Come on. Oh, conjunction of 2020. There it is. Let me share my screen. Okay, this is the moment of the 2020 conjunction that astrologers had on the back of their on the back of their brains for years prior to this event because they knew that this was going to be a big deal. It was going to herald in a new world order. And so the place that you want to look at is right here where it's 22, 22, 22, and 23 right there with Jupiter and the South Node right on the end. Okay, we had the Sun, Pluto, Neptune all together, plus this is Mercury, and then Jupiter right there. That was a little bit looser, but still all in Capricorn, a major conjunction. So, and look at this major player here. It's Saturn. Okay, we are seeing echoes of Saturn from 2020. We're going to see them showing up again in 2026, and we are going to have to see for ourselves how that plays out. Now, as we led up to this 2020 conjunction in January, many astrologers, including myself, had our eyes on it. We called it Karmageddon. And why? Because Saturn right there is the god of karma. That's what they call him. Whenever Saturn is playing along with anything that he's doing, he is the boomerang of our consequences. Whatever we've thrown out into the world is going to come right back to us. And Saturn is the guy in charge of that. And here, Saturn was exact Pluto and exact the Sun at the same time. Now, the Sun is only at a degree that it's at for one day at a time. The wheel has 360 degrees. The Sun travels 365. It takes 365 days to go around the wheel. So the Sun is not at any degree for very long, and the chances of it lining up just like this was really something. We knew going into this conjunction that we were going to look for a death and rebirth, for a lot of consequences, choices and consequences that were going to particularly impact the way that we worked, where people were working, like physically. This is the zone of the office, the workplace. And here we had the North Node pointing us all home. We knew that there was going to be a big change. Remember that Pluto deals with transformative change in how we communicated, how we thought, how we traveled. Okay, it was going to be very expansive. That's this Jupiter over here. We were going to have to face our dark side. As the entire globe, we were going to have to face that dark side. And we look at all of this here in Capricorn, and all of these astrologers, we were sitting there looking at this and saying, okay, well, but what's it going to do? What's going to happen? How is this going to work? And it wasn't until 3 months later that we saw exactly what happened. And we did indeed see what we expected to see based on the chart, right? We saw massive transformations of how we were thinking, how we could communicate, how we could travel. We saw a lot of restriction, which we would expect because Saturn is a restrictor. Whenever you are feeling like trapped and confined and stuck, Saturn is a really great place to look. Oh, hello.
Is
Yes,
that your new light?
it is. I'm doing a video, honey. Say hi.
Hi.
Okay, go eat your food. Bye.
Buddy.
Okay. Um, okay. So, so we saw for ourselves how all of those things did come to pass, but before it happened, we just didn't know how it was going to happen. And this conjunction took place, of course, on January the 12th of 2020. And if you go and look at what was going on that day, there's not like massive news. Um, People at that time were talking about the coronavirus. I remember in my circles, we were all talking about it in December of 2019. That was something we were talking about all the time, keeping our eyes on the news. But even then, I did not think, I mean, I didn't personally make the connection. I didn't say, like, oh, clearly, this virus that we're all keeping an eye on is going to be the manifestation of all of this stuff that we're seeing in this big conjunction. I did not personally draw that connection, and it didn't happen right away. That's how these things work. We have these conjunctions, these alignments in the sky, and then I always compare it to like eating lunch, and like the clock strikes noon, but you don't eat your entire lunch at the strike of noon. You realize, oh, it's noon. That means it's lunchtime. And you like get out your lunchbox and you open it up and then you eat it. And it might take you 15 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour to eat your lunch, but you have started lunchtime with the strike of the clock. And that is how I really view this, that we had the strike of noon that happened on January the 12th. And then a couple months later, we saw the world shut down in March of 2020. So now we're here on the other end. We're approaching the other end of this. This whole time, astrologers have noted that these two conjunctions, the conjunction I just mentioned in 2020, Carmageddon, was going to be sandwiched on the other end by this Saturn Neptune conjunction at the Aries point in 2026, which is around the corner. We are here, guys. We have 6 weeks to kind of get it together before this hits. So that's why I really wanted to talk about it. We got to bring it to our attention, have it on the back burner of our minds as we're going about our days, because we have these 6 weeks to wrap up a couple of different concentric cycles that have been happening at the same time. Okay. So I mentioned Saturn runs on a 29-year cycle. And so we're wrapping up a 29-year cycle with Saturn. Neptune wraps up a 184-year cycle. The last time Neptune entered Aries was actually within one day of the start of the Civil War. And I do think that is significant. And I think that we're going to see for ourselves how the echoes of that are going to be showing back up again over the next couple of years that Neptune is in Aries, especially with Saturn there as well. Aries governs martial activity, it governs war, it governs violence, fighting, the military, and Saturn deals with our consequences. Neptune deals with our ideals and our spirituality. I think we're going to see a big rise in people feeling like spiritually called to fight in all kinds of ways. Where in the past 23 years or so, we've had planet after outer planet in Pisces. We had Uranus enter Pisces in, I think, 2003. And then after Uranus entered, we've had all sorts of planets in there messing around. And whenever you have outer planets in Pisces, okay, let's back up because you know how the solar system works, right? We have the sun, and then we have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. And everything inside the asteroid belt is a personal planet. And then the stuff that's farther away is an outer planet. And those are generational planets. Those are the planets that impact impact everybody in a way that is different than like Mercury does. Okay. The inner planets like Mercury, Venus, Mars, those really indicate where your choices are going to make a really big difference. If you have a situation coming up in your life and you run these charts and you see that Mercury is a really big player, Venus is a really big player, Mars, then you know that your own initiative, your own choices is going to be the make it or break it of this situation. These outer planets, that's going to be like Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. These guys, they're biggies, and they impact people in a different way. They impact generationally. They're called the planets of fate by some astrologers because those are the planets where, like, your choices basically don't matter that much. Like, if those planets are going to be big players in your chart, like, well, oh well, like we're just going to see what happens because our choices are not going to matter. It's like fighting against this force that's bigger than any of us, okay? That is that's the energy that we are dealing with is this big outer planet conjunction, these conjunctions of fate that we saw in 2020, a new one in 2026. I don't expect that we're going to see a massive event on February the 20th of 2026. And just to be clear, I'm still planning on traveling. I just spent this morning looking at spring break plans for April and looking at plans for July. And I personally don't believe in living in fear and like being all stressed about this stuff. I think it's worth keeping an eye on. And I think it's also worth it to just like keep living your life if you are connecting with God every day and asking for divine wisdom in what you are doing, I think you're going to be fine. Go plan your spring break. Go make your plans. Do not, go crazy because we have these big conjunctions coming up. Uh, if you are living in alignment with your own intuition and with our creator, you are going to be led to make the right decisions. And if we make a plan and something crazy happens and we have to cancel our plan, it is going to be okay. We are in God's hands. And so do not go into this being fearful and weird. Go make your spring break plans and plan a fun year anyway, okay? Even during COVID, people could still have fun. And, we had a lot of changes in how we traveled and what we could do, but a lot of times we found ways to like make things happen that we wanted to have happen. At least I did. It was hard, but these things are possible. So, um, okay, as we are heading into February 20th of 2026, again, we're not going to look for a massive event that day, but what we're going to expect is that probably by July, we will see a big change in the global order. We are probably going to see a big shift in how things are functioning. And so let's talk about it. Okay, pulling up the chart. Okay. Oops. Yeah, here it is, February the 20th of 2026. And I believe, okay, so in between these two things, we had America's Pluto return, which I have done a bunch of work on as well. You can go and watch my videos about that. But that I believe also took place on February 20th of 2022, and that was the same date that Russia invaded Ukraine. So I was surprised that something big happened on that day. Of course, it wasn't Russia's Pluto return, it was America's Pluto return, but um, very indicative that the fate of Russia and the fate of the United States are probably linked, obviously, and something to keep an eye on. I have always stated that the nature of Pluto returns, I expect they take about 12 years to unfold. So we're looking at a cycle that began in 2022 that will continue unfolding until 2034. Interestingly, exactly 2,000 years after the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So that is something to definitely be keeping an eye on. Okay, back to the chart. This is the chart of the moment that Saturn and Neptune go exact at 00 degrees and 44 minutes of Aries. And you can see them right there. I always run my chart from Washington, D.C. Sorry, I'm American and we run it from there. I feel like America is the global superpower, and as America goes, so goes the world. So for me, I feel like that's a pretty reasonable place to run a chart where we want to see the overall scope of what's going to be going on for the planet. And so this is the thing. So, okay, we know that this is the big deal right now. Saturn, the planet of karma, is teaming up with the planet of spirituality, illusion, and delusion in the sign of violence, of new things, of new beginnings, of taking action without thinking about it first, um, impulsivity. Uh, and in the sign of the physical body, this is the sign of physical birth. um, of how you are embodied in your body. And we're going to talk about that. I've made some outlines for future videos, and I want to talk about how our spirituality is going to kind of be force embodied in a different way than we have experienced it thus far in our lives, probably. Where in the past we've had such a big focus on the ethereal nature of spirituality as Neptune has been in Pisces. But starting in February for the next multiple years, there is going to be a new innate drive to physically embody our spirituality. And so, what does that mean? We'll talk about that in another video, but that is something to be aware of as we're heading into it. We are shifting away from spirituality as something we kind of feel, something that we like, we sense and we kind of like, I don't know, feel in our souls. And it's going to become something that we do. Our beliefs will be something that we act. And if we are not acting on our beliefs, I think we're going to see some physical body consequences of that. Maybe not externally enforced, but just our own bodies are going to give us a harder time when we are not acting in alignment with what we spiritually believe. Okay, this is the spot of the chart that we obviously have to talk about because that is bonkers, correct? This is the 12th house, and the 12th house is the house that is governed by Pisces and Neptune. All three of those go in this zone of the chart. And man, that 12th house and Neptune and Pisces, they all have a lot to do with enemies. That is the house and the sign and the planet of hidden enemies, the things that we don't know are out to get us. They're the signs of the things that we don't know. Um, that idea of like what you don't know can't hurt you. It's the idea of what you don't know can hurt you. That is like the essence of the 12th house and Pisces and Neptune. They can be very delusional in this sense that they might feel very connected spiritually, but might not see everything super clearly. And then what they're not seeing clearly can come and bite them in the butt. People with a whole lot of Pisces. And guess what? I have a lot of Pisces, so I feel like I am authorized to say that. I have a Pisces moon. Okay. So here we have in Pisces, in that 12th house, we have the sun, the north node, Venus and Mercury, and then the ascendant right here. The sun is our core sense of self. The North Node deals with our destiny. Venus deals with our inner feminine side, the part of us that receives things. It deals with money, finances, the economy in terms of our people buying and selling. And then Mercury also deals with commerce. It deals with travel, with thinking, with communication. And okay, Mars here and Vesta here are not in Pisces. They're in Aquarius, but still in that 12th house when we run it from Washington, D.C. And when I see this massive collection of planets all in the 12th house, mostly in Pisces and a little bit in Aquarius, all I can think is like, oh boy, who are the hidden enemies that are going to come to light with this transit? It's us. We are the sun here. It's us. We are the ones that, and in a mundane chart reading, the sun actually refers to our political leaders, and the moon refers to the people. And so I think we're going to see how things like the deep state or like the overall government apparatus has actually been a hidden enemy. We're going to have to reevaluate our destiny in a serious way, especially when it comes to our spirituality. I feel like we're already seeing a lot of discussion about that right now in terms of like this year, the White House posted a bunch of stuff about like Merry Christmas, like we're a Christian nation, stuff like that, if I'm remembering correctly. And then I saw people being like, oh my gosh, you can't just say we're a Christian nation. Like that's the kind of thing that you would expect from having the sun in the 12th house. Those are the kinds of discussions that we're going to have. What kind of spirituality is appropriate for a country and for our country? Having Venus and Mercury in there, we're going to have to evaluate how like what are the hidden enemies in our economy, in our commerce, in our communication, in our travel? How are all of our how we buy and sell. As I'm talking about, I'm like, oh, this probably also has to do with things like in the 2020 conjunction, we were looking at censorship. We didn't know that. Like people reading it ahead of time were like, oh, yes, clearly they're going to start censoring all of our social media. And in retrospect, it's like, obviously, what did we think? It was Saturn and Pluto, exact the sun, conjunct Mercury. Like, of course they were going to do that. And here we have Mercury as a big player right there, right next to the ascendant in Pisces. Are we going to see a revival of censorship? Are we going to see new discussions on what should and shouldn't be allowed as far as like what people buy and what they sell and how they communicate and where they're allowed to travel? These are all things that we might need to keep in mind.
Can you tie this?
Oh, yeah, I can. Come here. Sorry, guys. Okay. Very quick hairdo. Okay, move your hand. Okay. You need to be ready to go in 15 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Annie. Okay, bye. Um, okay. Okay. These are all energies that we're going to want to keep an eye on as we are heading into this conjunction. This is a time where hidden enemies are going to come to light and force us into a new order. Okay, that Neptune and Saturn conjunction is going to force us to pay for choices that we have made. I say we, and I do mean it on a personal level, like you and me, buddy. We are going to have to pay the piper on bad decisions we've made in the past. They're going to come home. The chickens are coming home to roost. So now is a great time to start, repairing things that you've messed up in the past. Do it now so it doesn't come and whack you later. You can choose to do it on your own volition, or you can have it come and smack you when you don't expect it. If we don't do this proactively, it is going to smack us. So let's be proactive about it. And that's what I want to talk about in future videos. But we got to kind of lay the groundwork right now about what's going on. Um, this again, this is also going to deal with military stuff. It would not surprise me if we see a bunch of like war type of stuff. I feel like what we've just seen with Venezuela, we've seen a lot of different stuff going on already that is just a precursor to what's coming up in February, and then it's going to magnify and kind of snowball over the next several years. Um, I have talked in many videos in the past about this that there's going to be a big focus on remigration and the call for people to go back to the land where their bodies are from. And I think that's going to be an increasingly hot topic. I think we're going to see a lot of like deportations, not just in America, but in many places. In many places, people are going to be very tired of foreigners. This exact transit is not a foreigner-friendly transit. This transit is yeah, it's about going home to the land of your body. And I'm saying it that way because Aries governs the body. And this Neptune is going to deal with the spiritual aspect of it, and Saturn is going to deal with the physical reality aspect of it. And so I think people are going to I don't know. I think we're going to see it widespread. Like I've been seeing in Japan, they just elected someone recently. I'm not an expert in this, but I think she said that her big thing is like kicking out all of the foreigners. And like, obviously, there's been like a lot of talk about deportations in America. There's been a lot of talk about migration policy in Europe. And I think that is just going to escalate and escalate and escalate over the next couple of years, but it's really going to, get off to a big start this coming year, possibly not in February, but in the coming months. And so we've got to be aware of it. Other predictions that I have for this transit. Okay, I made a little list. Wars and rumors of wars, because Aries governs both initiation and violence, like getting things started and violent things. And so I think we are going to see some initiations of violence in the next couple of years. I think we're going to see a return to corporal punishment. Aries governs the body, and Saturn deals with karma. And I think that people are going to start like there's going to be a huge shift where people are going to be much more open to, for example, instead of like if somebody's shoplifting and then then they might have like a court date months later and like their consequences are very like nebulous, which is very Piscean. It's very outer planets in Pisces. Outer planets in Pisces say, well, maybe bad guys weren't really that bad and they probably had a backstory. We should probably have compassion on them. Their punishments should probably be like not that clear. Like they maybe should take a while to enforce. That's all very Piscean. Saturn and Aries has no time for that, and it just says, if you shoplift, maybe you should get caned. Like maybe we should just like whip you in front of the store. Um, and so that is something that I am expecting. I'm expecting that over the next 3 years, that Overton window on what is appropriate punishment for various types of crime is going to shift. And I think it's going to shift in favor of physical punishment, that is prompt and just like takes care of the issue right there. Like if you have catch somebody shoplifting, it's obviously that like clear that they did it. And then they just like get whacked a couple times in front of the store. It is obvious their body has paid a price and now they don't need to go to jail. It like saves taxpayers a lot of money. And they've learned a clear lesson that has been both physically painful and humiliating, and they are unlikely to probably shoplift again whereas like in a situation where their punishments are not as urgent or physical, they may not feel the same kind of they may not be as dissuaded, if that makes sense. So, so anyway, we'll see. But like that has been something that I feel like I think it's coming. That's what I think is happening. Again, not tomorrow, not probably in 2026, but I think by 2029, we may have seen a real shift in favor of more corporal punishment as a form of dissuading various types of crime. On that note, I think we're going to see beheadings. I think we're going to see hangings. I think both of those forms of punishment are going to come back into vogue by 2029. That's my guess. We'll see if I'm right. Who knows? But it would not surprise me, especially with this Pluto transit in Aquarius, where it hasn't been there since, the French Revolution. I think, and I've talked about this in previous videos as well, we are entering into a French Revolution kind of vibe where Pluto in Aquarius is going to have everybody asking, who is a human? Who gets human rights? And in the past, the last time Pluto was here, we had big talks about, do women have rights? You know, um, what kind of a person have rights? And then when Neptune first entered Aries last time in 1861, the big question was, can everybody have rights regardless of their color? And I think we're going to see revisitations on all of those issues. So we will see what happens with that. Okay, let's see. We are going to probably see a rejection of compassion on villains, where over the past 23 years in particular, we've had a big focus on, seeing the heart of gold in the bad guy. Like they probably had a backstory, they probably had this like terrible childhood. Um, if you guys have seen oh my gosh, what is it called? Phantom of the Opera, where the Phantom, sorry, spoiler alert, close your ears if you haven't seen the Phantom yet and you want to. But the Phantom, you find out, had this horrific childhood and he's had like a terrible life. And he's also a terrible person. Like he has both. Like, yes, he has a bad backstory, and he's also just bad. And so I think we are going to be coming around on this issue where over the past 20-ish years, we've had a lot of compassion, a lot of willingness to like look at the sob stories that have been lurking behind bad behavior, and that's going out the window. We are going to see, like you will see for yourself. This is my I don't want to say my guarantee to you, but I feel like I can almost guarantee it. I bet that even if you don't think you will be one of those people, by 3 years from now, you will see for yourself that you have become one of those people who has much less tolerance for bad behavior. Even if you know they had a bad story, you are probably going to be a person who says, well, guess what, homie? Like, you had a bad life. Like, sorry, your previous bad life is not an excuse to make other people's lives bad. Like, enough is enough. That enough is enough vibe is definitely, it's around the corner, and I think we're going to see it. Because of that, I think we're going to see a big shift in fiction. If you are an author, this is your time to be working on an Arthurian fantasy, okay? With a very clear right and wrong. We don't need nuanced villains anymore, and we don't need flawed heroes anymore. I think we are going to see a natural shift societally towards stories that have like clearly good heroes and clearly bad villains. And I think that that drive to kind of lionize villains and demonize heroes, like that is going to be shifting out. And yeah, if you're a writer, that is definitely where I would channel my efforts right now is writing stories with clear good and clear bad because that is coming right up. That is the vibe that we're heading into. Okay, let me look at my list. People are going to be more willing than ever to fight for what they believe is right. I think I mentioned this. We could see a shocking turn of events that leads to changes in our daily lives, similar in scope to 2020. And what I mean by that is, I don't know that it will be exactly like 2020, of course, but rather that similar in magnitude, like whatever changes are coming, they will probably be as widespread and as thorough as what we saw in 2020. Whatever they look like, um, and I don't know what they will look like. You know, we can make some guesses. Again, we'll probably see some hidden enemies come to light. We'll probably have to reevaluate the enemies that have been staking their claim economically and in terms of our communication and all these different kinds of things. We're going to see a lot of events unfold over the next, 7 or 8 months from right now. But whatever changes must happen on our day-to-day life, it wouldn't surprise me if we saw as big changes in 2026 as we did in 2020, whatever that looked like. So I hope that makes any sense. Okay, we are heading into the creation of a new foundational myth where and that's really, I mean, Neptune is all about mythos and like this mythology, and Neptune and Aries is we need a new myth. And I need to make a whole video about this. We're coming up on the Uranus return of World War II. Okay, so I've been seeing a lot of people on the internet, they are having a lot of questions. I don't know how to put it. Basically, like the Holocaust questioners out there, where they're saying maybe the stories that we were told about the Holocaust were not true. Maybe they were not exactly as advertised, and people are starting to really question the foundational myth of our current world order. Everything that we experience day to day in this current day and age is based on the foundational myth of World War II and all of the things that we've been told about what happened in World War II. And now there is like this growing movement to kind of deconstruct that foundational myth. Why? And so we're in an interesting phase right now at this tail end prior to this conjunction indicating a new foundational myth. Things are going to be starting to unravel. People are going to start questioning the way that they always saw the world order working. They're going to question who is the real good guy, who is the real bad guy, both now and historically. And again, I was looking it up because I was like, this is like pretty interesting that like so many people are questioning these foundational myths of our current society. And so, of course, I looked it up and said, oh my gosh, like we are at the literal Uranus return of World War II. It's been 84 years, and that's a Uranus cycle. So we have to talk about that in another video because I'm sure it's super interesting, and I haven't finished looking at all the details of that. But the point is, we are currently going through a time where we are dissolving previous foundational myths, like global foundational myths, and we are going to be reconstructing them over the next several years. And so, in this interim time where we are deconstructing an old way of thinking about the world and constructing a new way of thinking about the world, it may be disorienting, it may be alarming, it may be confusing, it may be like angering as we see people question things that we have always believed. As maybe we ourselves are going to start questioning things that we always believed, and then we're going to say, "Oh my gosh, I always judged people that like thought of those things or thought this way, and now like I'm starting to think this way." Those are kinds of things that I think we're going to see on an individual level. Individuals are going to be deconstructing their old myths that that their worldviews are based on, and we're all going to be reconstructing new foundational myths to help us understand this new world order that we're heading into. So, really, really interesting stuff, and we will see how it plays out. Okay, I talked about remigration. Okay, this is the big thing at the end of the day. The big message of this transit is that escapism is over. Neptune, Pisces, 12th house, all of that is escapism. It wants to run away, it wants to hide, it wants to not see what's actually going on in the physical body. It's not very embodied. Pisces and Neptune, they're not like super embodied energies. They're very ethereal. They're floating around in that great ether and, connecting spiritually. And when you have a lot of that going on in the transit, like when you have 23 years of outer planets in ethereal, like loopy Pisces, then you don't uh I don't know, things are loosey-goosey and a little floofy, spiritually, and that's ending. That is ending. And every person in the whole world and every country in the whole world and every like continent in the whole world is going to have a massive reality check. That is what it all comes down to, reality checks. We are going to be seeing so many reality checks in every single kind of way. And that is basically the thing that I want us to be prepared for. If you can proactively ask yourself, okay, where have I been delusional? Where do I need a reality check? Where have I been seeing these things incorrectly? Um, then we can start proactively shifting those things instead of having it come and kicking us by surprise and, whacking us in the face. So I've talked about how as a child, yeah,
Water.
yeah, you are big. You can get your own water, honey.
I really want food.
Oh, well, okay, I can get you food in like 2 minutes. Go eat your water. Go get your water. Let me finish my video because I'm almost done.
Bye.
When I was a kid, I was like 12 years old, and I realized that if one of the reasons why we're here on Earth is to like learn our life lessons, and if like a lot of our trials and suffering is because we're learning life lessons, then what if we could learn our life lessons without the struggle and ask God proactively, like, okay, God, what is a life lesson I could learn right now through journaling and through my scripture study and through prayer and through like gentle instruction from people I know in my real life? Like, what if I learned my tough lessons that way instead of through like horrific trials that kick my trash? And that is a prayer that I want to urge all of us to pray. Go and ask God, like, okay, I know I'm heading into reality check zone and I know that it's going to be inescapable. But is there anything I can do today with your help, God? How can you and me partner together to make this transition as easy as possible? Are there any reality checks that you can just tell me spiritually and I can like write them down in my journal as I hear them in my mind? And maybe I could start shifting these energies now before it has to be ugly. Can we change before we have to change? Can we be humble before we are forced to be humble? That is the real question here. And the more that we partner with God to ask the right questions and then to write down the answers that we get and then take action on them, the easier our entire time with this transit is going to be. So I'm strongly going to urge you to do that. And I have been working on preparing more videos like this one, but much shorter, to help us just do a little bit of work on this day by day as we lead up to that. I didn't even mention that this Aries and The Saturn and Neptune conjunction in Aries is happening in the middle of an eclipse portal, and we will have a solar eclipse just 3 days before and have a matching lunar eclipse just a week and a half after. So this is all being sandwiched by eclipses, which if you've followed me for a while, you know we love to work together, you and me, to work with those eclipses and, supercharge our spiritual growth and make our lives better. This is a really exciting time. And so, anyway, I would love your prayers for help actually recording all of these videos. And I want to be there for you guys. And I hope that together we can gain a lot of insights about what's happening. We can clear out a lot of our own karma and take care of all the unrepented issues that we need to clear up out of our souls so that we can move forward without problems. Um, yeah, let's get the job done. Okay, I'm gonna go. Come hang out with me on Facebook at Intuitive Healing with Ali Duzette. That's my Facebook group. Only the coolest people in the world are in it, so I hope you come join us. Um, there's a link below to my email list. I recommend getting on it. I will be hopefully recording a number of sessions that are going to be very helpful with all of this as we head into it. So get on that list to get notified of when I'm recording new sessions. And okay, that's it for today. Thanks for hanging out, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.